Hey everybody, it's 3 o'clock, it's Tuesday, that means it's Tech Tuesday. So what is going on in the world of broadband these days and broadband operators? Hang on, I'll be right back and I'll tell you. Hey, thanks for joining me again, Rick Uzzi, here at Zcorum. And today I'm going to be doing another broadcast on kind of what's latest news in broadband. If you want to chat about this, have any comments on any of the stories that I bring up, feel free to do that in the chat section of YouTube. We'll take a look at that at some point, and I'll pull that up. So again, thanks for joining me. So let's get right to it. What's going on? A few things I want to talk about. A couple of them are related to broadband and the fact that they're releasing spectrum for 5G in a couple of different areas. So this is important. It's important that we get faster broadband via wireless, and 5G is a way to do that. Maybe not, it's going to be difficult to get as fast as some of the promises of 5G because millimeter wave is going to be difficult to do over long distances and to get through walls and trees and that kind of thing. But there's a lot of mid-band spectrum that the government's working on getting released here. And this is an example right here with CBRS. That's Citizen Broadband Radio Service, not CB, not Citizens Band Radio, like the old days, CB radio, but this is Citizens Broadband Radio. And this is spectrum that is being released in a range that is in the mid-band spectrum. You see here it's in the 3,550 megahertz to 3,700 megahertz, about 3.5 to 3.7 megahertz. And this particular band, they've got the auction is already taking place, and they've already raised $1 billion. So this is exceeding what they were expecting. So there are a lot of companies that are bidding on this spectrum to be able to provide this service in this range of spectrum. And what's interesting here is there's 3 tiers of this. I did a complete Tech Tuesday, a full broadcast on CBRS a little while ago. So if you look down in the comments, I've pinned a link down there on CBRS if you want to learn more about that. And it's basically 3 tiers of spectrum that are available. They're only auctioning off 100 megahertz spectrum. So from 3550 to 3650, they're auctioning off for licensed spectrum. That's where people can license that. The full 150 is available for unlicensed. But those unlicensed folks that are using that have to have it set up. There's a system set up so that they don't interfere with people that have licensed the spectrum, as well as incumbents that are in the upper tier of that spectrum that are using it for things like radar, which would be military, basically Navy ships. So there's a spectrum sharing that's going on with CBRS, but that spectrum of the lower 100 megahertz is being auctioned off for license purposes. And again, they've already raised $1 billion on that, or surpassed that. They expected that it would range from $3 billion to $4 billion to around $10 billion. So those are the highest estimates, but they think it may even exceed that now. On opening day, auction proceeds reportedly surpassed the reserve price, and the pace has not slowed. So that's continuing on. It says all U.S. wireless companies, major companies, have qualified to bid, along with some cable companies like Cox, Tier 2 telecom providers like Frontier and Windstream, numerous small carriers, and others. It says here that Frontier and Windstream are likely to use this, any winning bids that they get, to provide fixed wireless service as a low-cost alternative to fiber-based broadband. So maybe in some of the areas where it's a little harder to lay fiber, they can be looking at the spectrum to do some wireless out there. So that's moving along with CBRS. This is the first spectrum that's going to be available. Again, it's already available in unlicensed right now, where you can use it. But then you have to worry about interference, and you have to back off rather than interfering. So looks like a lot of people are really interested in this licensed spectrum. And this is going to be available relatively quickly in this mid-band spectrum for 5G. Then we've got C-band. C-band is the spectrum that's being used by some satellite companies to beam content down to Earth stations so that TV stations and cable operators can receive that content. So that's what happens is they beam it up, and then it gets beamed down to various Earth stations where cable operators and TV stations and whatnot can then take that content. So there's a lot of spectrum there that's not being used efficiently, and the FCC is trying to free that up. In order to do that, they have to get the satellite companies to exit, I think it's the lower 100 megahertz of that band there. This band is 3.7 up to 3.7 up to 4.2, but the band that they're freeing up is the 300 megahertz from 3.7 to 4. So they're freeing up 300 megahertz there, and they're having the satellite companies kind of consolidate everything into that upper 200 megahertz, saying that it's really not being used efficiently enough. And they're providing some economic incentives for them to do that, and especially to do it quickly. So there is some contention here. It's the FCC has said they won't include IRDs in C-band lump sums. So the FCC has lump sums that are taking into account that there's going to be some cost to vacate this lower 300 megahertz of spectrum. And one of the things that they had said they would do at one point was help cable operators that are having to, or that might want to change over from using satellite delivery to maybe doing fiber delivery. And they've said they won't do that. So, in a defeat for cable operators that could land the FCC in court, the Commission's Wireless Telecommunications Bureau has released the final cost catalog for C-band, and lump sums will not compensate cable operators for integrated receiver decoders, IRDS. Those are the decoders that are required for changing, basically if they have to change over to these other bands. And the point of that is that these decoders are not required if the cable operators or whoever's doing this on the ground stations, if they want to go ahead and switch to fiber, they don't need these IRDs. But the FCC is saying if you're not going to use those IRDs, then we're not going to compensate you for switching it over to fiber. They're basically saying, that's a sunk cost. That's another part of your business. But what these operators want to do is they want to maybe go to something more efficient, and they're not being compensated at this time if they want to do that. Again, here the FCC is clearing the lower 300 megahertz of the 500 megahertz of this band, 3.7 to 4.0 for that spectrum. Cable operators wanted the lump sum to include payment for relocating all of their earth stations, but be free to use it to transition some or all of their earth stations for fiber delivery instead. So the ACCA, or the ACAC they call themselves now, the American Cable Association, I'm not sure what the last C stands for, is not liking this because they've got a lot of operators that would benefit from having this money to be able to be used to convert over to fiber delivery of these video feeds as opposed to satellite. So they're not happy. Broadcasters teamed up with TV content companies, broadcast and cable programmers to ask the FCC not to allow MVPDs to include these IRDs and lump sums. So that's who's been fighting against this. And you can see why satellite companies wouldn't like it, because they'll be losing this business if these companies, rather than receive it from the satellite, from the bird up in the air, they'd be getting it over fiber. So that's what's happening with C-band. Here's a statement from Matt Polk over at ACA. As a result, hundreds of MVPDs who were relying on the text of the FCC's order will now be forced to abandon their shovel-ready plans to deploy and use fiber as a satellite replacement. For most, if not all, ACA Connect's members, the Bureau's meager lump sum payment has turned the order's option of transition to fiber into a non-option. Polka did not say whether the ACAC would sue over the decision, but if his rhetoric is any indication, it would seem likely. So the ACA may sue in order to get these payments included back. And this C-band is going to be a while, because they've got to clear this band of all of this incumbent traffic right now, and that's going to take a really long time. So this probably won't be till 2022 or so when this spectrum becomes available for things like 5G. And just announced there's a new bunch of spectrum that's coming available. The DoD agrees to share mid-band spectrum for commercial 5G. And this is, the Trump administration is making 100 megahertz of mid-band spectrum available for the FCC auction by December 2021. So this will be a year after the C-band auction, but it'll probably be available sooner, who knows. And this band is 3.450 and to 3.550 gigahertz. I think they mean megahertz there. So it's probably 3.45 gigahertz to 3.55 gigahertz. Currently used by the DoD for key radar applications that could be freed up quickly for sharing with commercial 5G without sacrificing national security or military uses. Specifically critical radar for air defense, missile and gun control, battlefield weapon locations, air traffic control, and more. So hopefully it won't interfere with that. The administrator will work with the industry on sharing regime, which will require ongoing coordination. So it'll probably be like CBRS, the dynamic spectrum sharing that they're doing there, and that's a whole system that's set up. Again, you can watch that video. There's also the link to a C-band video, by the way, below if you want to check that out. But on CBRS, if you look at that video, it talks about dynamic spectrum sharing and how you've got these incumbents, and then there's these systems set up so that your access points are automatically, and your radios are automatically notified that they need to back off if there's somebody transmitting. Like if there were military use being at that particular time, you'd have to back off. So it'll probably be a similar kind of situation in sharing spectrum that way. The White House and DoD started work on finding the spectrum back in April, and he said the critically needed spectrum could be available for commercial use by mid-2022. That's really fast for just now starting this. C-band they've been talking about a while. So again, this very well may be available before the C-band spectrum is available if they can fast track this. A few stories on just some impacts from COVID-19 on the broadband business, and in general, it's been good. I don't mean, it's obviously not good that we have COVID going on, but as far as business operations, it's not hurt cable operators, and in a lot of ways, it's helped because of the increase in demand for broadband. And a lot of the companies were touting that in the past couple of weeks. So you had Comcast added 323,000 internet customers in Q2 2020, 323,000 high-speed internet customers in its second quarter, resulting in the best second quarter in 13 years. That number does not even include over 600,000 additional high-risk or free Internet Essentials customers. So this doesn't include accounts that are being provided for free right now or that they deem as high risk. In other words, they'll go away pretty quickly after this all happens, after we get through this. So that's pretty interesting. That does include that. This is interesting. The 323,000 high-speed internet customers added in the quarter are net from 340,000 residential adds and 17,000 business losses. So you can see lots of residential internet additions and a good number of business losses. So again, that's the whole effect of COVID, of businesses closing down, or maybe businesses that have got everybody working from home now, cutting back on their office internet. So just one of the things that are now impacting our lives and broadband operators. Charter also added new COVID customers to their sub count for Q2 2020, and in this case, they were actually adding in some of the people that they were providing free services to and whatnot as it relates to COVID, but they still had some net gains. So Charter reported a second quarter 2020 total residential and small and medium business internet customers increased by 850,000 compared to 258,000 during the second quarter of last year. Of that total, 842 were residential internet subscribers, and that's compared to 221 residential internet last year, same time. And then small and medium business internet additions totaled in Q2 totaled 8,000 compared to 37,000 in small, medium business internet additions in Q2 2019. So they didn't lose businesses, but they didn't see nearly quite the increase that they did last year. But they have also had a big gain. Now again, out of that number for Charter, that does include people that are kind of temporarily on their rolls due to COVID. So it says out of the 842 new internet subs, about 254 are new customers stemming from promotions and discounts related to COVID-19. So whether or not they remain or not, we'll have to see. Altus also, 70,400 broadband subs were added in Q2 2020. Best ever residential broadband net additions for them, 70,400 compared to 13,000 in Q2 2019. And when adjusted for customers who signed up as part of the company's pandemic-related free offers, then that would have been 52,600. So if you take out those what may be temporary accounts, it's 52,600, which still represents the best ever quarterly broadband performance for Altus USA. So they also have seen some gains this last quarter. And then WOW, Wide Open West Q2, also saw a surge in broadband only, and they're attributing some of that to the fact that they're focusing on broadband first. They're calling themselves a broadband first company now, although everybody's kind of seeing this gain, but they really are trying to focus on that and have been, I think, regardless of COVID. So they say about 77% of all new signups fell into that category of broadband only or broadband plus streaming during Q2 2020, compared to 66% in the previous quarter and 57% in the same quarter last year. And they say, we believe the ongoing shift away from traditional video will continue to accelerate. And I would say that's absolutely true, regardless of what's going on with the pandemic. So WOW is feeding this shift by focusing on its higher margin broadband service. So again, they're purposely going after this business, de-emphasizing its legacy QAM-based pay TV service and steering broadband customers to OTT options. So rather than, they're actually promoting other OTT options, but they do partner with YouTube TV, Fubo TV, Philo, and Dish Network. Dish Network owns Sling TV. But they've also developed a contract-based IPTV service called WOW TV Plus that runs on an operator-supplied Android TV device and features traditionally sized channel packages. So you're seeing more and more of that as operators are either partnering with these over-the-top companies like a Hulu, like a Sling TV. Some are coming out with their own, what looks like your normal linear cable TV, where you've got your guide, and they're just providing it via internet. So it's going to be ITV based, and you're going to see more and more of that in these from these different markets. So they're doing that. So the gross margins on broadband is significantly higher, obviously, than WOW's pay TV product, because the margins on pay TV really, really slim when you consider the cost for content and whatnot. But that's not only part of the story. WOW CFO John Rigo said, the cost to operate the business for TV is substantially more expensive than it is to operate it for high-speed data or even phone for that matter. So we're at that pivot point now. That is the broadband-centric strategy. So again, they're pushing that trend. And he says it's part of a higher trend. I'm sorry, the story, part of a bigger trend. So WOW's not the only one. Cable One, another mid-sized U.S. cable operator, has all but ignored pay TV in favor of driving broadband penetration. So we'll be seeing this from other operators as they realize that the margin is really in broadband, but they're going to try to keep their toe in or their whole foot in to the video side, either by partnering with these OTT operators or coming up with their own internet TV offering, which we'll see. So here it says TDS bucks the trend by adding video subs. But how did they do it? They did it with internet TV. So they saw broadband and ARPU growth in Q2 2020. They reported the results last week, appear to be paying off. Unlike its larger telco brethren, TDS is growing its video and broadband base, and ARPU is inching up as well. The company reported its video subscriber base increased by 9% in the second quarter, a feat it attributes to its new IPTV service, TDS TV Plus. So they've got their own thing. That new video product takes a more app-based streaming approach to video TV and uses TiVo middleware. So again, very similar looking to your standard pay TV product, but delivered over IP. 40% of subscribers who have access to TDS TV Plus subscribe to a double play of video and broadband. The company now has fiber available to 256,000 locations, or about a third of its footprint. And all fiber locations offer gig service. So it's a little bit about TDS. So in addition to cable operators growing the business during this time, so are streaming companies that we were just talking about, the demand for internet TV and streaming services. So Disney grew to more than 60.5 million subscribers, they just announced. And you can imagine that they're probably very thankful that they got in this business when they did, because you can imagine the other side of the ledger with things like their Disney parks and Disney movies and Disney cruise lines. All of those things are suffering right now. There's just very few people going to the parks. They can't have as many people in the parks right now. Cruises are not running. Some movies, they went Hamilton. You can see right here, Hamilton went straight to Disney streaming, as opposed to later it was planned on being out in the movie theaters. So they're doing what they can with Disney Plus to make up some of that revenue, and they're doing well. Again, more than 60.5 million paying subs as of yesterday, according to CEO Bob Chapek, and that was actually as of August 4th. So they launched in November of last year. They previously announced in April that the service had passed 50 million subscribers. And it says they likely received an additional bump after the end of the quarter thanks to the release of Hamilton over the July 4th weekend. So when they announced they were going to play Hamilton on Disney+, a lot of people signed up at that time. So whether those people remain subscribers remains to be seen. A lot of people did subscribe then. He also announced that Mulan will be released on Disney Plus on September 4th, but on that one you're going to have to pay. So it's going to be a Premier Access title that will cost an additional $29.99, so basically $30 if you want to watch the live version or live action Mulan. That's not like the cartoon, the animated version. This is a live version of Mulan, live actors I should say, that will be released on Disney Plus on September 4th. About $30, so I guess if you have your whole family there, maybe invite some people over, maybe it makes sense because that's what it would cost at the movie theater. So they're going to be doing that, and again, they're being kind of forced to do that because to try to put it out in the movie theaters right now would be a disaster. So that's coming out September 4th. One more streaming service, Philo, reaches 750,000 subs, showing a 300% growth year over year. This is a smaller streaming service. With its growth over the past year, and based on the streaming service's partner data, Philo is the fastest growing virtual multi-channel video programming distributor, VMVPD, for the first half of 2020. And of course, the big one in the room, Netflix, added another whopping 10 million subscribers, but warns that growth may slow. So they're trying to keep, it's a public company trying to keep everybody from not getting too excited. So 10 million new subscribers. They noted that they added 26 million paid new subscribers in the first 2 quarters of 2020 alone. In 2019, the company added 28 million subscribers in total, so almost as many in the first 2 quarters as they added all of last year over at Netflix. Executives are still warning investors about reading too much into that. They're anticipating adding 2.5 million subscribers in its 3rd quarter, down from 6.8 million in last year, the same quarter. So thinking that people are kind of buying ahead here just because of the situation that we're in. As a result, we expect less growth for the second half of 2020 compared to the prior year. So. Roku, a streaming platform, sees 42% revenue growth. Monthly accounts now total 43 million. 42% year-over-year growth in revenue and 41% gain in monthly active accounts. The platform revenues stemming from software deals of its platform on smart TV sets and advertising sales improved 46% to a total of 245 million approximately. Set-top box player revenues added 35% to 111.3 million. At the same time, Roku widened its net losses, now at 43.1 million from 9.3 million a year ago. So they've increased revenue, but they've also widened their losses for Roku. And then lastly, this is interesting. So one of the things that's driving cord cutting and people away from their traditional pay TV, cable TV kind of access is the lack of live sports. So people like maybe who had the expensive cable TV packages with ESPN, ESPN Plus, all of those sports packages, Sports South. There's not a lot of live sports right now. It seems like it was maybe back in March or April, I was flipping around, and I'm not a big sports TV watcher, but I saw on ESPN they were showing a cornhole tournament, a college cornhole tournament, and I went ahead and watched some of that. It was very interesting to see that. The stands were empty. You had 2 people on each side with masks, and it was amazing how good these people are at cornhole. I never thought people could be that good, but they were very good. And then as one guy was throwing, the other guy was on his phone texting or something. It was really, they didn't seem to care that they were there, although they were actually playing very well. Again, nobody in the stands, but that's what was going on ESPN just a few months ago. So without the live sports, you can see people are kind of cutting the cord. Nearly 1 in 3 U.S. households are cord cutters, according to the latest edition of Roku's annual cord cutter study. They're suggesting that COVID-19 is accelerating changes that were already well underway. I'm sure that's true. They also found an additional 25% of U.S. TV households that are cord shavers. So they've reduced their service. Almost 45% of cord shavers say that they're likely to cut the cord fully within the next 6 months. So these are people that have started to back away from the traditional pay TV service, and they're experimenting with that. They still have it though, and they may likely, looks like 45% say they may likely cut that cord fully within the next 6 months. So that's another reason why cable operators should be looking at what alternatives they can present as far as TV, and whether that be partnering again with OTT companies or coming up with their own internet-based TV product. The pandemic is affecting viewing habits. Almost half of the respondents said that they are watching more ad-supported free TV during the pandemic, and 40% of recent cord cutters said that access to free and extended free trials to premium subscription services was an element in convincing them to cut pay TV services. So if they could go try YouTube TV free for 15 days or Hulu for 30 days or whatever, they try that and they realize, you know what, this isn't so bad. And then they realize that it's something that they can switch over to. So the changes may be permanent. Only 17% of cord cutters said that they will resubscribe to traditional pay TV services when sports return, while 31% said that they will likely subscribe to a live sports streaming service. So they may, rather than going back to the traditional TV, pay TV, they'll continue with the streaming that they're doing and may then sign up for an ESPN streaming service, something along those lines, to get the sports that they want. 52% of traditional cord shavers said they will likely reduce their packages if live sports on traditional pay TV does not return. So you can see the impacts there that we're all experiencing from COVID-19, the pandemic, and it's been impacting the cable business, broadband business, TV, and everything. So we'll see how it continues on through the rest of the summer and the fall. So that's it for today. Thanks for joining me. If you like this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up on the video down there, down at the bottom, not right there on the screen, but down below the video on YouTube. Go ahead and give me a thumbs up. And if you'd like to subscribe, just click the subscribe button and click the little bell to be notified anytime I am live or anytime we upload a video. So that's it for today. I will see you next week for Tech Tuesday, 3 o'clock Tuesday. Bye-bye.